In the heart of a lavish New York estate lived Arthur Sterling, a billionaire with everything money could buy, except the one thing he longed for most, his son's voice. The Sterling mansion echoed with the clinks of silverware, the rustle of expensive suits, and the soft whir of imported chandeliers. But it lacked something simple. Something sacred. Laughter. Joy. A child's voice. Arthur's only child, Nathan, was born with severe cognitive and communicative challenges. 17 years had passed, and Nathan had not spoken a single word. Not once had he called his father, Dad. And Nathan's mother, Anna Sterling, Arthur's beloved wife, never got to hear it either. She had died giving birth to Nathan. That loss shattered Arthur. But instead of turning bitter, he turned inward, pouring his entire soul into his son. He refused nannies, declined remarriage, and often said, "I will not divide my love." He stayed devoted. But love, as powerful as it was, couldn't protect Nathan from cruelty. Arthur's younger brother, Charles, his wife Margaret, and their daughter Emily had moved into the estate under the pretense of helping. But behind Arthur's back, they became tormentors. Where Arthur saw a precious, quiet soul, they saw a barrier, the sole heir standing between them and a massive inheritance. "He's the only obstacle," Charles once muttered in the shadows. They treated Nathan like a ghost. Laughed when he flinched. Emily once locked him outside in the rain and giggled as he curled up beneath a bush. At night, Margaret would whisper to him, "If only you had died like your mother." But Nathan never reacted. Never screamed. Never cried. He just stared, often at the ceiling, often at the sky, lips slightly parted, as though waiting for something. And then came Lila. A 17-year-old girl from a modest neighborhood, who came to the mansion to deliver books on behalf of her aunt, the part-time librarian. One quiet afternoon, she noticed Nathan in the garden. He was crouched by a flower, staring at it like it held the secrets of the universe. She knelt beside him and whispered gently, "Hi. I'm Lila. What's your name?" He didn't answer. But he didn't turn away either. That was enough for her. She came again the next day. And the next. Reading poems aloud, humming lullabies, placing wildflowers in his hand, not because anyone asked her to, but because he mattered to her. One day, Arthur returned early and paused at his study window. He saw something he'd never seen in 17 years. Nathan smiled. It was a faint curve. But for Arthur, it was like witnessing the first sunrise after years of darkness. He didn't rush out. He just stood there, frozen, afraid to break the spell. Later that evening, Arthur called Lila to his study. "I don't know who you are," he said softly, "but today, I saw my son smile, for the first time in his life. Tell me what you want: money, college, a car. Anything. It's yours." Lila hesitated, then said with quiet grace, "I don't want anything, sir. I just think he's beautiful." Arthur's eyes welled up. "Then help me. Stay. Be his friend. I'll make sure you're taken care of for life." Lila smiled. "I'll stay. But not for money. For him." And she did. Under her warmth, Nathan slowly bloomed. He began responding to music. Painted stars, butterflies, galaxies. Made small sounds. Even mimicked soft words. Arthur started laughing again, a sound the house hadn't heard in years. One afternoon, Lila asked gently, "Has he ever said anything? A word? Ever?" Arthur shook his head. "Not a word. But now, I have hope." But not everyone shared in that hope. Margaret and Charles grew furious. He was supposed to be silent forever. Margaret snarled. One evening, with Arthur away at a charity event, Lila heard a scream from upstairs. She rushed to Nathan's room. What she saw broke her. Margaret was shaking Nathan by the arm. "You ruin everything," she screamed. "Let him go." Lila yelled, stepping in between them. Margaret froze. She hadn't expected resistance. Arthur returned that night, unexpectedly early. Lila met him at the door, trembling. "You need to see the surveillance footage. Now." What Arthur saw shattered him. Years of silent abuse. His son, tormented in his own home. His own blood, the betrayers. The next morning, Arthur called everyone to the grand hall. "I built this house for my son. Not to be his prison," he said coldly. He turned to Charles. "You were my brother. I trusted you. To Margaret, you were family. But you became his abuser." He pulled out the old will and tore it in front of them. "You are nothing to me now. Leave. Today." They left. Empty-handed. Arthur turned to Lila. "Thank you. For giving him what I couldn't." Weeks passed. Healing began. One rainy afternoon, Nathan and Lila stood beneath a tree, watching raindrops kiss the leaves. "Even rain sounds like music when I'm with you," she whispered. And from the silence, it happened. "Lila." He said her name. His first word. Soft. Breathless. Fragile. She gasped. "Did you just?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. Arthur, watching from afar, felt his knees weaken. But there was more. One morning, Arthur was called into a private meeting with Dr. Peters, the estate's neurologist. The doctor looked serious. "Mr. Sterling, we've been studying Nathan's condition in detail. And we discovered something deeply troubling." Arthur tensed. "What is it?" "There were traces of a neurosuppressant in Nathan's system," he explained. "It's a rare drug meant to subdue aggression, but in children, it can slow brain development severely if used long-term." Arthur's face went pale. "I never authorized anything like that." "Who?" The doctor hesitated. "That's the thing. For the last 3 months, the drug hasn't shown up in his system. And that's exactly when Nathan began to improve." Arthur's thoughts raced. 3 months ago, that's when Lila started caring for Nathan. When she started feeding him. When? His voice cracked. "Margaret." Arthur raced to his private surveillance room and pulled old footage. There she was, Margaret, holding a small bottle, pouring syrup into a spoon. "Nate, be a good boy," she said sweetly. "This will help you stay calm." Nathan's eyes were dull. He drank it without resistance. Arthur collapsed into the chair. "You weren't broken," he whispered, tears falling. "You were drugged. And I never saw it." Lila's kindness hadn't just brought Nathan out of his shell, it had saved his life. Her love had broken a cycle of silent poisoning. No longer drugged. No longer silenced. One evening, Arthur watched Nathan draw, a house, a tree, a boy standing in the sun. Lila sat beside him, her hand resting gently over his. 17 years had been stolen from them. But now, they had hope. Arthur had enough evidence to bring criminal charges. The attorneys were ready. But he made a different choice. "In court," he said, "they stole my son's childhood. I could waste the rest of my life seeking revenge, or I could spend it giving Nathan back his life." The court banned Charles, Margaret, and Emily from ever approaching the estate again. Legal proceedings followed. But Arthur? He chose healing. And Lila? She never left. Because love had finally found its voice.